everybody and welcome to A Better You, your one-stop shop for everything self-improvement, self-discovery and self-care. I'm Emily and today we're going to talk about when your gut is wrong. I'm sure you've heard the saying, trust your gut or your gut instinct, and you've all had that feeling where you intrinsically knew something was wrong, something wasn't quite right, you just didn't feel good about a situation. And the usual advice is that you should trust your gut, follow your intuition, etc., etc. However, sometimes our gut can lead us astray, especially when we're talking money. First of all, let's take a step back and look at what we mean by gut instinct. Your gut instinct is when something outside of logic urges you to do or not to do something. Ultimately, your gut instincts are primal urges and they're there to help you do the right thing. Essentially, your gut instincts allow you to make quick responses to danger. So, for example, if a lion was about to walk into your cave, then you know how to react to it nice and quickly. There is a slight issue here, however, in the fact that we usually aren't living in caves anymore, and usually the types of dangers that we're facing are not the type that require a fight or flight response, which is where primal urges can be really useful. Because the dangers that we face have different patterns and different rules, sometimes your gut instinct is just wrong. So what are the rules in the first place? The rules are essentially behavioural biases. That is, they are particular ways that our body will respond and that our mind will respond based on a particular situation. In this video, we'll walk through the different types of biases and how you can use the knowledge of them to make better decisions. The first of the biases is anchoring bias, and this is essentially where we hold on to the first piece of information that we hear about something. So for example, if you walked into a car dealership and the dealer told you a specific price first for a specific car, then that would be the piece of information that we would cling on to and we would try to get the price down from that point. However, that wouldn't necessarily be the right decision because that's just that car dealer's price for that car. So for example, you haven't looked at market rate for that car. The key way to overcome this particular bias is data, and a lot of it. So essentially, you shouldn't be using somebody else's jumping off point. Have a look on the market, research what is appropriate, what is right, and move from there. i.e. use a standard rate as opposed to the first point of contact. And the really key thing here is to not just jump ahead with things, not just go for things just because you've just heard them just right then. Take your time, walk away, go get some proper data and move from there. It's also really important to consider this during salary negotiations. Just because a company offers you a particular salary doesn't mean that that's the true starting off point. You should be looking to market rate. The next bias is the bandwagon effect or sheeple. This really helps technology companies out. So that next big piece of tech, if everyone buys it, you want it intrinsically. It also helps out for things like it bags. And the really key thing here is to actually just make your own opinion. Actually have a look at whatever you're being sold and really analyse why you want it. Do you want it just because everybody seems to want it? Or does it fit in with your usual style? Does it have good specifications? Do you actually need it? It's really important on this one to take a step back and make sure that you're not being impacted by those around you. The next bias is confirmation bias, and this is where we look for information that confirms our existing beliefs. So if you've been raised in a specific way and you believe a certain fact, then you will look for information around you that confirms that, and your mind will automatically ignore information that doesn't confirm that. Now this is particularly damaging because it means that as people, it makes it more challenging for us to grow, for us to change our beliefs, and it makes it so that as a society, we can't step forward. Some previously held beliefs are right, don't get me wrong. So my mum is certainly a very clever lady and some of the things that she's taught me are definitely right. But it is worth challenging yourself and just making sure that you're not just looking to confirm your beliefs as opposed to actually looking at all of the facts about a situation. The next one is present bias, and this is where we prioritize the present over the future to an inappropriate degree. And a really fantastic way to bring this to life as to how prevalent this is in our society is credit cards. So if you are spending on a credit card and not paying it off within that month, then you are being subject to present bias. Because essentially your priorities are now over the future and you're not really considering what this decision does to your future self. So for example, if you see a dress and you have this big event, you can't really afford it, so you put it on the credit card, and you don't think about the fact that if that was a 30% APR credit card, then you just cost yourself an extra third on top of that dress. The way to manage this one is a little frustrating, but essentially the only way to manage it is patience. It's making yourself wait for things. If you have an urge to buy something right now and you know it might not be the best decision, then wait a week. Just put something on a list, and if you still want it in a week or a month, then buy it. If you can justify it, then buy it. But by the same token, challenge yourself to hold back a second just to make sure that you're not really prioritizing a decision for now that you will regret in the future. There was actually an interesting experiment done for present bias, which is one that really brings it to life. And this is around giving kids one Haribo sweet, I'm sure you've seen the advert, and asking them to wait for an hour. And if they waited for an hour, then they would be given another Haribo sweet. If the kids can wait, they've obviously doubled what they get. By and large, most children, however, couldn't wait, illustrating the effect of present bias. The next one is endowment effect, and this is where we value things that we already have over things that we don't already have. So for example, if you've got a specific dress in your wardrobe, then you might find it harder to get rid of and harder to see the true value of than one that is already on the shelf and that you haven't bought yet. This can make it quite challenging to change our lives and to upgrade, I guess. So essentially we would value our existing job, our existing partner, our existing house, regardless of black and white facts. Automatically, by us just owning something already or having something already, we would feel like it's worth more than something that we don't have. This is the opposite of the grass is greener on the other side, and it doesn't always happen realistically. But the job is a great example with this one. It's easy to see the security in our current job, the benefits of our current job, the salary of our current job, and find it quite hard and quite scary to move. But you often see when people are made redundant, then that they say it's just the push that they needed to start something new. If they didn't have it, they have that freedom to go anywhere, to do anything, and to do what they actually wanted. But while they're in that job, it can be trapping because they see the value because they currently have it. A great antidote to this one is actually minimalism. So it's really powering back what you already have so that the chances of endowment effect are a lot slimmer. And it also gets you out of that habit a little. The next one, which is quite similar, is the status quo effect. And this is where we prefer things to stay exactly how they are. Essentially, we are creatures of habit and we do not like change. And the only real way to change this is to embrace change and to force yourself into regular change until you get comfortable with change and start to see it as an opportunity as opposed to a threat. And finally, loss aversion. And this is our intrinsic fear of losing things. And again, it's quite interlinked with the other ones. Sometimes loss aversion works for us because it can be somewhat of a protector against gambling. However, it can go too far. So for example, if we have money that we're investing, then the fear of losing any part of that money might drive us to poor investment decisions purely from loss aversion. So those are some of the top biases. Now there are plenty more biases. So if you look up in Google behavioural biases or behavioural economics, then you will find a lot more of these common behaviours. But the summary of what these things are are ways that your mind trips you up to make poor decisions. And the way that, by and large, you can stop that is by taking a step back. And when you're making a decision, thinking about why you're making that decision, adding data to the mix to make sure that you're making the right decision for you, writing down pro and con lists, and really challenging ourselves as to are we making the right decision for ourselves at this state. And also really starting to embrace change. I think one of the key things with this is that in the past, change was a true threat, whereas now change can be such an opportunity in the world that we live in. So if you can embrace change, use data, and take a step back from your decisions, you should be able to overcome these intrinsic biases. If you found this video useful, please do like it and share it, and please do subscribe for more weekly content on self-improvement, self-discovery and self-care.